Europe's largest nuclear power plant was disconnected from Ukraine's power grid yesterday after shelling sparked fires near the facility. Ukraine's national energy company says emergency backup systems helped to sustain crucial operations and supply was restored later in the day. But the incident heightened fears of a potential nuclear disaster. Joining us now live from central Ukraine, NBC News foreign correspondent Megan Fitzgerald. Megan, this has been a concern, as you know well, for several months since this war began and since Russian troops moved in and around that nuclear power plant.
Oh, absolutely, Willie. And as you mentioned, it's this increased shelling that's happening around this highly sensitive situation, around a nuclear plant, one of Europe's largest. And in this instance, as you said, a fire broke out, which knocked the power off its power grid, forcing it to operate temporarily, running on these backup generators. Those backup generators take diesel. Now, here's the concern. The Russians, as you know, occupy this plant, and there's no way of knowing how much diesel the Russians have left should this incident happen again. Meanwhile, this knocked off power to thousands of people in the area. They didn't have sewer services. They didn't have water or electricity. So it really highlights a potential humanitarian crisis here. We know that the International Atomic Energy Agency says that it could just be a matter of days before a crew of experts are able to go inside that facility. But here's the issue there. They want them to go in through the Ukrainian side, and that's something that Russia has not yet agreed to. Meanwhile, we know that Vladimir Putin is trying to increase his military by 10% to the tune of nearly 140,000 new troops. We've been speaking with some military experts who say this certainly suggests that he is gearing up for a long war, Willie.
NBC's Megan Fitzgerald from central Ukraine this morning. Megan, thanks so much. Joining us now, former NATO Supreme Allied Commander James Stavridis. He is MSNBC's chief international analyst. Admiral, it's great to see you this morning. Boy, the Russians playing with fire here as they occupy that nuclear power plant, again, the largest in the continent of Europe. What are the dangers here? How close could we come to disaster?
Well, I spent 2 years, Willie, in command of Enterprise Carrier Strike Group, USS Enterprise, the nuclear-powered aircraft carrier. We had 8 reactors on Enterprise. There wasn't a morning that I didn't wake up and think, how safe are those reactors? How is the coolant? Are we sure we have backup systems? Because if you lose electricity, as the reporter just told us, you lose the ability to cool the core of the reactor. This, of course, is what happened in Chernobyl, in Fukushima, at 3 Mile Island. And it leads to a breach which could launch a great deal of radiation in the world. And by the way, with shelling going on and military activities, the whole process is well beyond the design specifications to keep it safe. So the answer to the question, how dangerous is this? It is massively dangerous. This requires full international attention and getting experts into the plant and getting it out of the combat situation. Very dangerous.
Meanwhile, Admiral, Vladimir Putin issued an order yesterday to recruit more than 100,000 new troops into the Russian military, wants to bring his overall number up over 1 million troops, reflecting perhaps the long war that he didn't expect to have here.
I think, Willie, it also reflects the combat losses he's experiencing. Every intelligence agency now says that Russia has killed in action or wounded and knocked out of action somewhere north of 70,000 troops. It's probably closer to 100,000. So if you're trying to run the war from Moscow, you know you've got to replenish those troop levels. Here's the bad news for Vladimir Putin. Doesn't look like people are exactly signing up in droves in Russia. They are, by the way, opening recruitment to people, men, from 18 to 60 years old, Willie. Think about that for a minute. You know, I'm in my 60s. I don't think the Navy is looking to get Admiral Stavridis back on active duty anytime soon. And it shows you how hard a lift this is going to be for the Russians. So, yeah, he's going to try and recruit. He's got some real challenges with an unpopular war and a body of people in Russia who are gradually waking up to how disastrous this is turning out for their nation.
Well, I don't know, Mike Barnicle. I think the Navy would take the Admiral back, don't you?
Well, I think we're both happy that he's on active duty here this morning because we need him. But Admiral, the potential increase in troop allotments from Russia into Ukraine, the cutting off of energy sources from Russia to the NATO countries. I'm wondering, do you think Putin's strategy is now that he's placing a bet that warm homes and hot water among the NATO nations will turn out to be a more important factor in his war against Ukraine than will actually their feeling of freeing and making sure liberation continues and democracy continues in Ukraine?
Mike, I think your analysis is correct. Putin's trying to turn this into a long game that'll certainly drag into the winter. But I'll give you 2 points to hold in mind why I think that will not work. Number one is the Europeans themselves. I wouldn't bet against them in this scenario. And it's not as though they're going to have granny freezing in the attic. They're going to need to raise the thermostat a bit, lower the thermostat, in order to preserve some energy, yes. But they're not looking at apocalyptic events here. I think they'll hold together. And then number two, if you really look at total energy in Europe, gas is about 20% of that. Putin controls 10% of that. He controls 10% of total European energy. So he doesn't have a complete chokehold here. And it's going to hurt him as well. It's hard to rewire gas and send it somewhere else. So I think Putin's making a bad bet here. But yes, Mike, his bet is that the Europeans are going to crack. Personally, I wouldn't bet against the Europeans.
Admiral, I think the West has, to some extent, unfortunately moved on a little bit from what's going on in Ukraine. Talk exactly how is Ukraine doing? Give us an assessment. If you were in charge of the military in Ukraine and you had working knowledge, which you do, of the assets of Russia and what losses they've suffered, where are we? Are we halftime? Are we in the third quarter? What is the score? I think it is really important that we keep reminding the West that the investments they've made have worked and that there is really some really good news on the Ukrainian front in terms of the war over democracies.
Senator, I agree. And we need to rewind the clock 6 months and think about where we stood as this invasion started. Many analysts believe that Putin was going to run the table, take over Kyiv, probably capture and kill Zelensky, and consolidate control of the country. He has failed miserably in that. And now he is back to holding a little bit more than he started with, which is about 20% of the country. So he is not in any sense winning. He's also, as I just mentioned, 80,000 killed and wounded. His economy is slowly grinding down under sanctions. And above all, to your point, we, the West, are putting the right weapons in the hands of the Ukrainians so they can reach behind Russian lines, go after logistics, go after the wellheads that supply fuel going forward, go after that Black Sea fleet, ensure that grain comes out. All those things are happening. And Zelensky continues to be a highly inspirational leader, while Putin increasingly plays the part of a war criminal. When I put all of that together, if I were playing the game of battleship here as an admiral, I'd much rather be on the side of the board that the Ukrainians are than the Russians. They still have chances, the Russians. They still have cards to play. They're dirty tricks like this nuclear power play. But overall, the long throw of history here is against Vladimir Putin.
Admiral.